What is going on, everybody? This is another episode of Three Deep South. Sorry, I sound uh, like I'm dying. I'm not. I'm just a little sick. Um, this is our week 4 reaction show, so we're gonna kind of go over what happened yesterday. Um, it was a pretty good day, really. Besides my favorite team, which is incredibly disappointing, but we're, we'll move on from that. Let's just kind of start off with the game that. Hold on, give me 1 sec.
You're good. Yeah, the game. What was that first game that was on? We had Michigan, Nebraska, which was the first game. And me and you kind of both said that, like, I thought Nebraska was going to win. I've kind of been high on Nebraska this year, but it seemed like that's the whole thing about Michigan. And that's what's been Michigan's, like, bread and butter ever since, probably 2021, 2022, when they really started becoming relevant. They're just a team that won't quit.
Yeah,
It didn't matter, like what they went through or what was going on or like any of that. Like you had to play the game with Michigan all the way through the fourth quarter, and it wasn't that Nebraska was like they didn't really get out physicaled. Their core, Dylan Raiola played pretty good. I watched most of that game, and like I don't feel like Michigan really outplayed them that much. Now I know they only won by 3 points, but it was literally only because Michigan just would not quit fighting to win that game, and it seemed like they just outfought Nebraska, and that's a big win for Michigan, especially because they didn't have their head coach. It was at Nebraska, and Nebraska is a tough place to play. I think they're one of the only college football teams that have consecutively sold out their football stadium like X amount of home games or whatever that is. Nebraska, we talked about it at the beginning of the season. Nebraska's fan base is absolutely nuts, and it really sucks for Nebraska because this was one of those games that me and you said that they had to win to really prevail themselves into that next tier of the Big Ten, and it just seems like they're still in that second level. Now they could win more games like later on in the season that they're not supposed to win, but if you can't beat Michigan, it's tough for me to think you can beat the teams like Ohio State, Oregon, Penn State. Now they don't play all three of them this year, but like that's the top level. And if you can't beat the lowest of the top level, especially this year, like I just don't see you beating the other three if you come to play them later on in the season.
yeah, that's kind of my reaction. Is I don't see how Nebraska going forward like looks at their season because they are going to have to go on the road to Penn State later in the year. And this was going to be kind of the one that if they won this game, maybe looking forward, you could project yourself playing in the conference championship eventually. Losing this game with Michigan not having their not having their head coach, and you have it at home, and it's kind of like the biggest game of the day in your conference. It was slightly disappointing, but Nebraska didn't play terrible. Michigan just kind of overwhelmed them. It was kind of
Yeah.
a late score that brought it to within 3, but Michigan kind of controlled that game. Um, sorry, I sound worse than I have sounded. Let's just kind of stay in the conference here. Let's talk about Illinois, Indiana. That game was a game that I really thought Illinois was going to kind of show up and do what a Brett Bielema team does. You know, run the ball and play decent defense and control the game and just maybe win 24-17. But Indiana blew the doors off of them. Fernando Mendoza went for 267. 63-10 was the final score of that one. I didn't get to watch it. Obviously, I'm sick, so I was kind of spotty with the games that I got to watch. What kind of happened in that game, Justin?
Man, I watched it, but once it kind of got out of hand, like I didn't really like stay in tune with it because there was other big games on at that point in time that were actually good games. But from like the stat lines that I was seeing and like what was going on, like Mendoza really didn't throw the ball that many times. Um, so like it was just, and from the highlights that I kind of did get to watch, it just seemed like an onslaught of just scoring, stopping, scoring, stop. Like, it just seemed like Indiana had Illinois' number. And, like, Illinois was ranked number 9th. Now, they were highly ranked coming into the season because they were returning a lot of starters. But there's a lot of teams that were returning a lot of starters that aren't very good, kind of like a game that we're going to talk about later with South Carolina. Me and you both thought Indiana and South Carolina were going to be good teams, and or not Indiana, Illinois were going to be good teams, and Illinois was going to make that push in the Big Ten to really battle with that 5th team in the top level. But, you know, man, I don't know, because me and you kind of thought Indiana wasn't going to win this game for one, and we thought they were kind of like, they didn't deserve it, I guess you could say, last year especially, and then this year, like, yeah, they're going to be Indiana, but we see them having a regress. At the end of the day, man, I don't care what they were ranked. You're not supposed to do that to a conference opponent, especially now if they would have done it to like a Northwestern, which is a lower level Big Ten team. Okay, whatever. Like, but you're still not supposed to do that to a conference opponent. You know, I mean, the only time you see that is when the team that wins 63-10 is an Ohio State, an Alabama, a Georgia, or somebody like that, and they beat somebody like a history-wise Vanderbilt or history-wise Mississippi State or somebody like that, or in a Northwestern or a Purdue. But to have two teams that are usually in that, the second level of the Big Ten, you usually don't have – I mean, it was a full-blown old-fashioned ass beating, really. I mean, I don't see how you take anything away from that game positive if you're Illinois. And Indiana, you just have to try to make yourself keep working because you don't want to live on the high, I mean, you were both wrong about that game. For one, we thought Illinois was going to win, and for two, I told people to bet the spread because I thought Illinois was at least going to cover. Well, I was completely wrong.
Yeah, I guess Vegas knew what they were talking about, favoring Indiana. I had no idea why they did that. Now we know. But
yeah, and I didn't expect. I didn't think Indiana was even gonna. I mean, I thought they were gonna be a good team. I think Kirk Cignetti's a good coach, but like, I didn't expect them to do that. I don't think anybody did. Not to that extreme against that good of a Illinois team, because I don't like the preseason rankings because there's certain teams that'll still be ranked even though they have a bad loss. But like, I understand it when it comes to like Indiana or Illinois because it's like, okay, well, they're just returning a lot from last year. They had a good season last year. They won their bowl game. Like they had momentum coming into the season, but like, this is why I really don't like preseason rankings, is because like Illinois or Indiana's not going to move up the rankings like they're supposed to. And Illinois might not even, it should have been the number 9th ranked team, if that makes sense.
Well, and the AP having Illinois at number 9 after beating Duke is kind of mind-boggling in its own. But yeah, Indiana won. They deserved to win. They were obviously the better team. Let's kind of talk about a different game. Texas Tech kind of thrashed Utah on the road.
Yeah.
I was wrong about that one. I thought it would – I didn't necessarily think Texas Tech had no chance or anything, but I thought it would be a lot closer of a game. I thought Utah needed it, and they just did not show up the same way. The talent discrepancy was a big factor, but it was also just Texas Tech made big plays, and Utah never did. I was kind of flipping in between this game because Arkansas was currently ruining my day as this game was going on. But what was your reaction to Texas Tech Utah?
Yeah, I got to watch a little bit of it. I'm at my parents' this weekend. So I mainly stayed on the Hogs game. But I did get to watch a little bit of it. This is kind of what, I mean, me and you kind of disagreed about this game. I didn't think Texas Tech was going to go out and just beat Utah by, X amount of points. I thought it was going to be a closer game, but I thought that Texas Tech had the number 1 transfer portal coming in. They had talent. They paid a lot in NIL to get a team. And this is what your boosters pay the money for, is to beat teams that you're not supposed to beat and beat them handedly, especially in the Big 12, obviously. I really like Texas Tech, man. They're they're talented. It seems like they're coached really well. And it seems like they have meshed well together as a team, which a lot of times when you bring in transfer guys, like you don't know if they're going to mesh or they're not going to play well together. And that could be a 10-2 season versus like a 7-5 season. And it seems like Texas Tech has some stuff figured out for them. Their quarterback's playing good. Their pass game is great, which their pass game's been good for, pretty much forever. But Texas Tech, that's who I had win. No, I don't know if I had them winning the Big 12, but I had at least them going to the championship game. And I think this is exactly why, is because they're just more talent rich than most Big 12 teams. And it seems like they play really well together and they're very, very well coached.
Let's kind of get into the one of the not lower tier, but one of the SEC games that wasn't as important. Ole Miss hosted Tulane. And this is kind of what I wanted to say about this game was like, obviously, Austin Simmons probably never needs to touch the field in Oxford for the rest of the season. Chambliss looks amazing. Yesterday, he led the team in passing with 307 yards, and he led the team in rushing with 112. They beat Tulane 45-10. And I know transitive math, if you add things the way that they're supposed to be added, you would think that Tulane is supposed to lose to Memphis because Memphis beat Arkansas and Tulane lost by 35 on them. I think Tulane's a good football team, and I think Tulane's better than Memphis. They play in a couple weeks. I think Tulane will probably win that game. But I think Ole Miss is a good football team too. Their defense looked a lot better yesterday. They tackled way better than they did against Arkansas. Chambliss looked really comfortable, and I think it's a team projecting forward that they got to play LSU, they got to play South Carolina, they got to play Florida and Oklahoma. But this is a team I think that can win a lot of those games and could maybe kind of be in a similar situation to where they were last year. They could be right on the brink of the playoffs, so they could either be in or they could obviously miss it. But so I think it's a team to look out for now, for sure.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree. I'll raise my hand on this one. I thought I called the upset in this game, and I was clearly wrong. I thought this was going to be a slip-up game, a lot like another game that I'm sure we'll talk about in a little bit. I thought Tulane was good enough to give Ole Miss problems, and it was going to be a look-ahead spot for them. I think Tulane's a good team too, like you said, Mason. I just think Ole Miss, especially with the quarterback change that they've made, they look like one of the – it's hard because they really haven't played any kind of big competition, but the way that they're playing, they look like a very, very good SEC team. Especially in a conference that I've talked about, the SEC doesn't feel like they have a top dog yet. You don't really know who that top dog is. Texas has struggled. Alabama has struggled. Georgia doesn't have a loss, but they've struggled. So it kind of looks like those second-tier teams in the SEC could make that step this year, like your Ole Miss, your Texas A&Ms, teams like that. I mean, Missouri looks good. So I think for Ole Miss, like this could be the season. I know everybody talked about last season, but this could be the season where it's like, okay, if you're going to make it and you're going to make it to the playoffs and make a run, like this needs to be your year because it just seems like they've kind of got some stuff clicking and they've had early season struggles and Lane Kiffin's made the right corrections like he's needed to.
Yeah, and I think they play LSU either next week or the week after, so that'll be interesting.
Yeah, they play LSU next week. Yeah.
Georgia Tech beat Temple. Missouri, we don't really have to talk about it, but Missouri did beat South Carolina last night. And it was a pretty good game. I didn't watch the very end of it because I took some NyQuil and fell asleep, but I did watch the good part of it. And I want to say this about Missouri. Their running back, Ahmad Hardy, that guy is a bowling ball. He just can't go down. I watched him against Kansas, and I was like, obviously I had money on Kansas, so I was like, why can they not tackle this guy? And then yesterday it was the same thing. South Carolina just couldn't tackle him. Lenoris played well. Dylan Stewart played well. South Carolina just doesn't have anything outside of those two guys. and it's reared its head again. And they played a team with that was just better than them, more than those two players could just accomplish on their own. Uh, Rough year for South Carolina, I think, is incoming.
Yeah,
Good year
man.
for
I
Missouri.
think. Yeah, I mean, we were wrong about Missouri and South Carolina. I don't like admitting that because we were really high on one and really low on the other. But there's two teams this year that are really worrying me that make me think they're going to be like Florida State was last year, and that's South Carolina and Clemson. But about this game specifically, it just like kind of like you said, man. We kind of knew that that South Carolina was really going to have to rely on Lenoris um, and Harbor and their edge rushers and their defense, and it just seems like when you rely on 3 or 4 players like they do, if those 3 or 4 players don't play a very, very good game and the ball doesn't bounce your way, you're going to expect some losses. And that's what is happening with South Carolina. And it's one of those things. It sucks because a lot of people were high on South Carolina. It wasn't just us. A lot of, sports media and individual podcasters, a lot of people were high on South Carolina. And it just seems like they're just not able to get stuff clicking like everybody expected them to, because they did hit the transfer portal pretty hard this year and they did bring in some pieces. Don't they have Squirrel White from or Squirrel from Florida State's got Squirrel. Okay. But I know they brought in some pieces to really bump up that offense, because what they're dealing with right now is the exact same thing they were dealing with last year. So they hit the transfer portal hard. They brought in some pieces, no big name, really crazy guys, but they felt like they added enough around their three-headed monster to prevail them, and it just does not seem like that's happening right now.
I guess we'll talk about it. So obviously Arkansas yesterday went on the road. And they lost another game that they should have won. I'm reading a comment from Dylan Spivey. It says, "Fumbles aren't a coaching issue. You're a D1 athlete. Hold on to the football." I disagree completely. The reason why I disagree is because you are 7-20 in one-score games. 7-20. You flip that, Sam Pittman's probably making $20 million a year right now, and we're talked about like we're one of the best teams in the country. It's not that it's a coaching issue that you fumbled the ball. It's an everything issue. The fumble isn't what even beat you. What beat you was you had a 400-pound D tackle wrapping up a quarterback, and he drove him 5 yards. That's what beat you, actually. Like, you still had a chance at that point. Your defense keeps having blown assignments. You scored 3 points in the second half. Like, it's not that the fumble beat you. The fumble didn't beat you. Everything that went into you being a second half failure is what beat you. Arkansas is never gonna ever win these games. They might win next week because we don't have any expectations for them now. Sam's trying to save his job. Doesn't matter. Sam Pittman cannot motivate a team, can't scheme a team, can't put them in winning places when it matters, and that's why you lose these games. That's why you are perennially 6-6. That's why this year we probably will be 4-8 or 3-9. We are not going to be a good football team, and it's not because we don't have talent. It's not because we don't have good coordinators. It's because we don't have a head coach that can put us in winning situations. He can't take control of anything. Our teams consistently step on their own feet and fail. That is our problem, and it is a coaching issue. I don't understand where the disconnect is with Arkansas fans and like reality on that. It is a coaching issue, and like I don't know. I keep hearing that. I keep hearing, well, it's not Sam's fault. It is Sam's fault. This is an issue that keeps going on and keeps going on since 2022. This has been a problem that just has not ended. It's a reoccurring nightmare. I watched all of them. It's crazy. But we can move on now. I just wanted to get that out.
No, and I'm gonna try to I'm gonna give a very unbiased take, and this is because I obviously want to see Arkansas win, but if they don't win, it doesn't mess my day up quite like it messes, people in my family's day up, your day up, friends that we have their day up. Just like I get upset about Ohio State losing, it's the same exact way. Um, I think the problem is Sam Pippen. I really do. Not so much where, like Dylan was saying, like, yes, they are D1 athletes, and you shouldn't have to coach them on ball security like you have to coach a Pee Wee kid or a high school kid or something like that. But that should be something in the spring, or a little drill where when the running backs go, or all your skill position goes from one side of the field to the other to switch drills or whatever, they all have a ball in their arm and they all run through the little tackling dummy thing and they cover it up with two hands and stuff like that. So, like, there's little things that they can do that doesn't take away from practice, and it's not technically the coach's problem that they are D1 athletes and they do fumble the ball, and I understand that. So on that specific topic, no, I wouldn't say that it's completely a coaching issue, but as a coach, after you fumble the ball once in a big game scenario, that should be something you pick up and start working on through the next coming weeks. My whole thing about Sam is what he has already done. His first season, he won 9 games. I don't think they'll ever do that again. When you look at him on the sideline, he does not look like he has the same intensity as even the other coaches around the SEC, let alone big-time coaches like your Kirby Smarts and your Nick Sabans used to, and your Ryan Days and Dan Lannings. He doesn't have that same intensity. He does have good coordinators. Bobby Petrino is a very good coordinator. Sam didn't bring Bobby Petrino in. Bobby Petrino is not there because Sam Pittman brought him in. That is not a Sam Pittman coaching hire. You know what I mean? He was just there because, like, Bobby Petrino was always going to come back to Arkansas. Everybody knew that. The defensive coordinator, I don't really know too much about him. I know he was pretty good last year, but it all wraps around to, what do Hogs fans expect? What do you expect in a season? Because if you're fine with going 6-6 every once in a while, and your highlight of the season highlight of a season is maybe winning 8 games with a bowl game, great, then keep Sam Pimpin. But from the way that I talk to Hogs fans that I know and just people around, the state, y'all want to get your football program like your basketball and like your baseball. Everybody wants that. But you're not going to be able to do that with Sam as the head coach, because it just seems like to me, yes, he likes being the head coach, but he doesn't even seem like he really, I don't want to say doesn't care, but like, he just seems too nonchalant to have a program that you have to push them. You have to drive the force, and like, most of your head coaches, especially in big time roles, because I think Arkansas has the potential of being a big time coaching job. Most of them are either coordinators on either side of the ball, or they're a special teams coach. Most of them are coordinators, and that's what Arkansas needs to do. They just need to go hire a coordinator. Don't go hire some Tulane coordinator. I would hire a defensive coordinator and go pay as much money as your boosters will let you to go get a coordinator from a big-time position, big-time college. A Georgia, an Iowa would be great. I think Iowa would be perfect for Arkansas, because that coordinator has done less with more at Iowa. And you can't argue that, because it ain't like Iowa's not recruiting at the same level Arkansas is, probably a little bit less, but Iowa has a top 10 defense year in and year out.
Well, and I think reality is the boosters. Everyone talks about JBL, Walmart, Tyson. The difference is, in Arkansas football and Arkansas basketball, is Tyson brought in John Calipari. Now, I know that this is kind of a
Yeah.
bad example, because you're not going to be able to bring in a Hall of Fame head coach, probably. Most of them are dead, or, Nick Saban. Um, you're not going to be able to do that. But what you can do is bring in a similar situation where one of those guys with big money brings in someone that they want as the head coach, and then they'll be more willing to give. It's not like Arkansas doesn't have money. We're not giving money to a program that we don't think is going to succeed. Like, would you give money? Would you keep putting money into a car that you know is not going to run? No, that's the issue. We don't have a head coach that they believe in, so they're not going to dump a bunch of money into something that they don't think is worth dumping
Yeah,
money into. Is what I'm saying.
yeah.
I personally would be fine with John Gruden. I know that it's a little off the wall. He has coaching experience in the SEC as a coordinator, as an assistant coach. He knows it. But more importantly, he has energy and life and a clear vision, and we would have a lot of eyes on us. If nonetheless, we would have that Dion effect, kind of a lot of eyes on us. That's probably not going to happen, but that would be funny to see. Let's kind of move on though. I'm tired of thinking about it, tired of talking about it, tired of it just
I
being
figured you would be.
around me. Maryland went on the road and beat Wisconsin 27-10. Now I did say I did not predict Maryland to win that game because I don't think Maryland's a good football team and I don't think Wisconsin's a good football team. But I thought that this had the potential of Maryland going in there and winning just because they're two bad football teams and you never actually know. And that's exactly what happened. Maryland went on the road and kind of bounced their head off the ground. It was kind of rough.
Yeah, I think Maryland could. I shouldn't say good football team. I think they could work themselves into that second level of the Big Ten. They could be a top 25 team by the end of the season. They have a freshman quarterback. It seems like their head coach and their offensive coordinator and their whole coaching staff has really not pushed him over the edge to where it's like, okay, you got to sink or swim. But I feel like they have put him in a position to where like they're not making him like live or die by the sword, if that makes sense. Like I feel like they're pushing him just enough and they're letting him grow. But I mean, man, I didn't get to watch this game, but I've looked at his stat lines over the season. He's a freshman. He's kind of balling out as a freshman. And Maryland has always kind of been in that spectrum of being a second level Big Ten team, but over the last couple of years, they've really had a regress, and it's still early in the season. I know they're 4-0, like they are undefeated, but like I'm anxious to see what Maryland can do going through the season. Could they be that sleeper team like Indiana was last year where they worked themselves up into a position where at the end of the season, yeah, they might have to beat a big-time team they're probably not supposed to beat, but could that win them a spot in the playoffs? I don't know. It's week 3. That's why I don't really like talking about playoffs in week 3, but I feel like they're a good enough – they have the potential to be a good enough team is what I'm getting at.
Yeah, I don't know. I haven't watched Maryland in 4 years probably.
Yeah.
Boise State.
What you got Baylor, Arizona State pulled up? I know I had that game on last night. It was a pretty good game.
Yes, Arizona State. Arizona State goes on the road and beats Baylor 27-24. I was definitely already asleep by the time this one started. I have no idea what happened in it. Go ahead, Justin. It's all you, buddy.
So it was really weird. So it was low scoring game at the beginning, and then they started just matching touchdowns towards the end. Baylor had the ball. I want to say there was like 3 or 4 minutes left. Maybe it was a minute left. They had the ball, and they pretty much just drove down the field and scored. And everybody kind of thought like, okay, the game's tied, like whatever, like we're going to either go into overtime or, we're going to, they're going to kick the field goal. And I think Arizona State got the ball back with plenty of time. It just really came down to Baylor's defense stopping them. And Baylor's defense just could not stop them. And Arizona State drove down and got within, I think, like the 25, maybe the 30-yard line, and had a second left on the clock and kicked the field goal. And, that was pretty much it. It was just your typical Big 12 game. Besides it starting out with some defense, it wasn't a 50-score game. But towards the end, it got very Big 12-ish because it was just score, and then who's going to win the game. It's kind of like what we talked about at the beginning of the season with the Big 12. Like any game in the Big 12 could end up being like a 9-overtime game, and that's what it felt like. It was just neither team outplayed each other. It just the ball bounced Arizona State's way a few more times than Baylor's. If you play that game 10 times, Baylor might win 5 of them. It was kind of one of those style games. I liked Baylor this year. I thought that they played really well in this game. It just seemed like Arizona State was just better coached, and they had experience in big games like that.
Well, and Baylor's schedule has been kind of. I mean, I'm not going to say it's the toughest schedule in the country up to this point, but they have they have played Auburn at home, who we saw yesterday looks like a good football team. They went on the road, they beat SMU, they had a tune-up game against Samford, and then they host Arizona State, who won the conference last year. It definitely gets easier from here. They go to Oklahoma State, they host Kansas State, two teams that have been really disappointing so far. Then they got to go to TCU, which I think is going to be a really, really tough game. I like TCU a lot. And then they go on the road to Cincinnati. They can win that game. They host UCF. They can win that one. They could probably win out after that TCU game and maybe be a 3-loss team. Who knows how the Big 12 plays out up to that point? You could find yourself with a sneaky chance to win the conference. Sorry, I was reading a comment on the YouTube. Aaron Hogue says, Trinidaddy for Heisman. Get rid of Sam, please. Big Ten still mid.
Yeah, I figured. Yeah, we'll see. We'll see.
Yeah, that's all I
the,
really got. Obviously, if you're listening to the show, you can probably hear that I don't sound the best.
yeah.
Is there anything else you kind of want to go over really quickly?
Um, the only game, and I can talk about this one, Mason, because I watched this one pretty much through and through, and then there's one other team that I'll bring up, but the Oklahoma Auburn game was a really
Oh,
good
yeah,
game.
we totally forgot to talk about that. That's on me. I'm
No,
sorry. I
you're
lost
good. You're like I said, I kind of knew that you were sick, and it was weird because you don't think they're big games, but like not that game specifically, but we had a lot more games that we didn't even think we were going to talk about, but it ended up being a good game. So in that game, Auburn never really got out of touch of being able to win that game. Auburn is a good program. They had 2 or 3 plays that just didn't go their way. And there were some bad calls in that game. There were some decent calls in that game. There were some good. It was just really, it was a weird game. But Oklahoma's kind of what I thought they were going to be, honestly. I mean, Auburn's a good football team. I'm not going to take that away from them because it is a good conference win for Oklahoma. But this is kind of what I talked about, coming into the season is like, I think Oklahoma's going to be really good. Now, their offense isn't as high power. Score 40 points if your defense is good enough to hold on that game. I think it was, yeah, Jackson Arnold. The transfer portals all got me messed up because I just flipped on the game and I was cooking something and I was, watching it, and they were talking about Jackson Arnold and how he's playing good this year and like blah blah blah. Well, in my mind, when somebody says Jackson Arnold, the first thing I think about is Oklahoma, and I turn around and Auburn's on offense, and I'm like, oh crap, yeah, that's right. He transferred from Oklahoma to Auburn. I think what he did in this game just shows how much Hugh Freeze has built him up over the season. Just because he struggled in games like this last year for Oklahoma, especially in a game to where this is his like homecoming, I guess you could say. But I feel like Oklahoma has the potential to maybe not go undefeated because they have a really tough schedule as well. But I feel like they could upset some teams they're not supposed to beat. Cough, cough, Texas. I think Oklahoma is going to probably make that game pretty ugly, if you want me to be honest. I know that's a few weeks away, but I just have a feeling that Texas has nothing for Oklahoma. But about that game specifically, Auburn versus Oklahoma, I don't know, man. I just feel like Oklahoma is kind of like that Michigan get down and dirty, but they just have an offense. That's it. Michigan doesn't have an offense. Oklahoma has an offense.
Well, and I think Auburn. The crazy thing is like Auburn didn't really play a clean game. I mean, they made mistakes the whole time, but still had a chance to win in the end. Um,
Yeah.
and then just penalties and penalties and penalties.
Yeah.
And that's just. I mean, maybe that's a sign of a young quarterback and a new offense. A lot of new pieces around him, but also it's just like it's a testament to Norman and their home field advantage.
Yeah.
The Oklahoma defense flew around; they were all over the place. But more importantly, Auburn's offensive line looked terrible yesterday. They let up 9 sacks or something like that. I mean, that was one of the worst offensive line performances I've ever seen, and they still had a chance to win. I think going forward, if your offensive line plays better in that game, Auburn wins. So if they can just improve, not maybe call different plays, so your offensive line isn't sitting back there blocking for a long time. Auburn could win a lot of games going forward. They look like a vastly improved team. But yeah, all props to Oklahoma. I think Oklahoma is a real bona fide top 10 team. They haven't proved anything otherwise to me. They look like the real deal this year. I think it'll be a very interesting game whenever they play the Red River Shootout down there in Dallas. That'll be a very good one to keep an eye on. But as you can hear, I keep having this go on. Yeah, that's all I got on it. I'm done talking. If you got to finish.
No, you're good, Mason. The only other thing that I was going to say, I think we pretty much covered all the massive games that were close. And you don't even have to talk about this. Clemson's over with. They're done. Dabo Swinney, I don't know if he's going to get fired. I will say this: as much as I do hate Dabo Swinney, that would be a coach that if he gets fired from Clemson, I would not be mad if Arkansas went and got him, because – and this is the only reason I say that – is because Dabo Swinney was a good enough head coach to learn from his mistakes. And I feel like if he ever gets fired from Clemson, when he goes to the next program, he's going to have to learn how to do the transfer portal. He's going to bring in big-name guys. And at the end of the day, Dabo would not be worse than Sam Pittman. I think Clemson as a whole, I think they're just done, man. I don't like Clemson anymore. Me and you were both very high on Clemson this year, and it just seems like they're a very mediocre ACC team. I mean, at the end of the day, if they wouldn't have got it winning that rain delay, Syracuse was about to beat the brakes off of them. And I fully stand by that. Syracuse was going to dog walk Clemson. And Clemson is not – I don't know, man. It's one of the craziest things I've ever seen. Even I know we've seen it last year with Florida State, but, Clemson was, on some people's polls as the number 1 team. And now they look like absolute dog crap. But other than that, Mason, that's pretty much all I got to, buddy. There's really no other games that were big. USC played Michigan State at the end of this, very late at night. I watched half of it and went to sleep. I know it kind of ended up being a little bit closer, but it wasn't that close, if that makes sense. I think USC beat them by 2 or 3 touchdowns. But for a Michigan State team that was supposed to be the bottom of the Big Ten, that's a good showing for them, especially with all the hoops and bounds they had to go through to get over there, play a night game at 10 o'clock and, do all that. I'm trying to think. I think that's pretty much all the big-time games that we had. There might have been some close games that were lower-level games. But other than that, that's it, guys. I know next week we're going to have another big week. We're going to be live Thursday at 7:30 at night, so make sure you like and subscribe to our video. Turn your bell notifications on, too, just because I know with everything going on, you might end up forgetting or you might not be on here live. And you've already seen it in this show if you're going to watch this show tomorrow or the next day. If you ask a question or make something that's relevant to what we're talking about, we're going to talk about it on the show. So if you want to watch us and, kind of interact with us, comment on our episode, talk about something, and Mason will read it off and, we'll discuss it. But like and subscribe. This is 3 Deep South. That's Mason. I'm Justin, and we'll talk to y'all on Thursday night.